right. And hello, everyone who has joined us so far. Can you guys see my screen? Oh, you can see it now, right?
I can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm enabling chat for attendees. Attendees can chat with everyone. Cool. So if you all could, in the chat, please drop your name, where you're zooming in from, and if you happen to have a burning SEO question that's just eating away at your soul right now, drop it in the chat. And if you don't, you can just do name and location. Wow, Cody, hello. I've seen you so many times today. Hell yeah. All right. Hi, Sina. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Amelia. Hi, Chuck. Okay, so far we have Central Time, Pacific Time, East Coast Time. Do we have any Mountain Time people? Ooh, Bangalore. Wow, amazing. There's Mountain Time. Hi, Kelsey. All right. Okay. Matt, hello. Rachel, hello. Grace, hello. Amazing. Okay, we're going to get started. I will kick it over to these lovely folks to introduce themselves. Betsy is unfortunately unable to join us because she has a kid homesick from school. So we'll be thinking of her the whole time. That's Betsy. She's fantastic. But Abby and Mitch are also fantastic, and they're really going to be holding down the fort for us today. So please introduce yourselves.
All right. Well, I'm Abby Record. I'm an SEO success manager here at Demandwell, and I've been doing SEO in some way, shape, or form for, gosh, going on 15 years now, but have been involved in mostly digital marketing in that entire time as well. So yeah, love working with these goofballs here at Demandwell, and excited to chat SEO with y'all today.
Yeah, and I'm Mitch Briggs, similar role to Abby, and similar background. Been doing SEO and digital marketing about 15 years. Abby and I used to work together at an agency back in the day, and we've all had a shared combination of agency and in-house. So hopefully we'll be able to use that to answer as many of these questions with our background and knowledge as we can.
Yeah, and we have like, what is it, almost 30 questions that came in through everyone filling the form. So we're going to start by going through those. Feel free to drop like follow-up questions that are related to the questions that we're answering in the chat or in the Q&A as we go. Do you want to kick it off, Mitch?
Let's do it. We'll
Perfect.
just start with the first question there in our sheet that I'm looking at, which is, it's really around, it came from Camille, who said, balancing multiple business strategies. So your go-to-market, your content, your paid, your product, customer, all those strategies that marketing has to support, and balancing that with SEO. Should you try to do it all? Like, how does that work? That's obviously a huge challenge for most, not only the people we work with, but just marketers in general, is to try to think, where should I be spending my time? And I hate to say it depends, but on this one, it really starts with understanding your audience and their journey to whether it's a prospect or even once they become part of that funnel, even supporting sales with your marketing activities. How do you get somebody from not knowing you to becoming a customer? That entire journey is going to be unique for most businesses and most prospects. But SEO is a huge part of that, because not only does it start with looking at keyword research as part of that audience research and part of that understanding, what part in that journey are people looking for solutions or trying to solve their problems by doing a Google search? That can help inform your content strategy and kind of understand that that's kind of part of that journey. I will say there are certain parts of marketing that can be not set it and forget it, but they can be something that is part of your like processes. It's like thinking about your financial life, right? There's a certain amount of your financial life you should just be putting away into your 401k and making those deposits every month. Things that you just continue to do to help the wellness and health of your financial situation. And then there's other things you might be doing that are more, risky, or other day-to-day things like budgeting. But I put kind of SEO and content and even some paid strategies and campaigns into those like things that have a consistent workflow that you're consistently working on and keep moving. And that kind of frees up your space to help you be more creative in those other areas, like building out, maybe it's a case study or an event like this. Chantal's a great example, right? She has a lot of things that she has to manage, but every once in a while, like, let's plan a big event and get people together and do something different that requires a lot of effort and time. But I think SEO, it should be something that you don't have to spend tons of time every day worrying about, stressing over, trying to implement. Try to take those things that you can kind of process and put into a workflow, and then separate out, those other areas for the things that might be more creative intensive and campaign focused. I'll just
quick Q in the chat. Is that what you were going to answer? Or sorry, in the Q&A.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
In a previous webinar, we talked about content strategy, blog posts versus pillar pages. Can you expand on this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's when we talk about like clustering content and looking at a keyword set. So a lot of times you can get overwhelmed by looking at a large set of keywords and think, how do I attack this, overall, and what type of content matches with each individual keyword? And it's best to think not just of individual keywords, but them as a collective whole, where you can essentially say, some of these keywords I think would be best served with more of a pillar page style content. So maybe it's really like a category, or just the search itself is somewhat short, category driven, looking for a lot of information on maybe one topic. Those are usually good in terms of answering that question with a very comprehensive page. Whereas some things might be how-tos, what is this versus that, best ways, those types of things might be more blog posts. They're still in that same category that you have a pillar for, but you're kind of separating out the long tail question and answer type things with content that might just be more like short, less direct kind of category level searches, and putting those together in like a pillar and spoke type of organization. And that really comes down to how those things link on your site. So you're really giving users the pillar and then the related content, the pillar and the related content. And the more you can kind of rinse and repeat and build those out, that's kind of what that strategy how that can manifest onto actual content on your site.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mitch. Abby, do you want to take the next question in the doc about GA4?
Yeah, so thinking about how to use GA4 for SEO. And I think for a lot of us, like, how to use GA4 at all. I know a lot of people, I think, are kind of behind the 8 ball in terms of this is actually going to happen in July. I think there were a lot of assumptions that Google was going to give us a little more time with UA, but GA4 is here to stay. And I think, honestly, it's a really good thing. It's an entirely different way of tracking than the cookies that Universal Analytics uses. And I think one of the biggest things it's going to do is just have more accuracy in tracking. So I've seen with a lot of customer sites recently, pretty big discrepancies between the clicks that we see in Google Search Console and the organic traffic that we see in Google Analytics. And it almost always has to do with a change in cookies permissions and tracking permissions. So people opting out, you're not able to collect the data on that traffic and those visits anymore, even though it happened. So Search Console is showing us that you're still getting, the same amount or more clicks, but traffic's going down in analytics. That's going to be solved through GA4 because it tracks in an entirely different manner. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is just continued access to data. But there's some cool integrations, like there's a Search Console integration that allows you to see Search Console data right in analytics. It's a little bit different way of building out the reports that we're used to. So I think, there's going to be a learning curve for all of us to, figure out how to access that information and probably do a little more customized report building. But there is, are a lot of powerful tools in there. And I think the sooner we can all just kind of dive in and get those all set up and optimized, the better it'll be.
There's a really good follow-up question of common issues and obstacles with GA4. The example here is 5x inflation of direct traffic compared to UA. Have you heard of this, Abby?
Inflation of direct traffic specifically. I have not seen that firsthand. I think the trick with GA4 is like a lot of the reports that we're used to just like having out of the box in Universal Analytics are ones that you have to kind of set up yourself, or, you know, pull some knobs and levers to get just the way you want it. So like I'm seeing, you know, trouble finding URLs, UTMs in GA4. And I think a lot of that is like, gosh, I know exactly where to find this stuff in analytics. Sometimes it's not there in GA4 until you set it up yourself, and kind of make those connections. I can't speak directly to, inflation of a particular channel. Mitch, have you seen that?
I haven't seen that, but sometimes what's happening there is you have a certain number of filters and settings that existed in your UA that haven't transferred to GA4. So maybe you were blocking out internal traffic, maybe you were blocking out a certain IP address, maybe you were, you know, there was a certain bot that you were silencing from the previous thing that once you set up the new, it's kind of a fresh set of implementation that you have to make sure you put those things together again. Demandwell app does not connect to GA4 just yet, but that is on our list to do for sure. That's the other thing with GA, is making sure other things that you utilize are still able to connect with it going forward.
And that's one of the things that we've been kind of, pitching about the connections to UA within the Demandwell app is, you know, Google's going to turn that off, and people are going to lose historic data. But everybody that's had their analytics connected to Demandwell will still have that historic data to be able to go back and compare with, what's upcoming in GA4.
Fantastic.
Want me to get the next one on the sheet there?
Yeah, go for it.
This one was from Pablo saying, what recommendations do you have for picking canonicals of posts? I'm going to assume that you're creating blog posts and maybe publishing it to multiple websites, and like, how do you pick, you know, which one is ultimately going to be set as the canonical? Definitely, you know, whatever is your brand, whatever is your particular real estate that you own from a website standpoint, that's what you want to be the canonical. A canonical tag, for those that don't know, is essentially a way to tell Google and other search engines what the source of that information is. So like a lot of people like to use Medium or other like syndication networks to kind of to take their existing content and have, you know, expand the readership of it through those other sites. So you're actually publishing that content to Medium or some of these other sites. Just make sure that you're allowed to canonical that back to your original post, and that you post on your site first before you then go distribute to other sites. Google kind of knows when things were published in terms of a timestamp. So you want to get yours indexed first, yours ranking first, then you can kind of populate it out there and set that canonical back to your, basically telling Google that, hey, this is the one you should rank. This is the real true source of information for this post.
Fantastic. Our next question is about Google Scroll, which I just noticed the other day when I was on a call with the person who manages SEO on our site. And we were like, what page are we on for this? And we Googled it, and we just saw that it never ended. The pagination has totally changed. What's the deal?
Yeah. So Noah asks, how has the updated Google Scroll affected page rankings, and how have techniques innovated with these changes? For a while there, you know, some of us were seeing it on some searches, but not others. Now it's universal, infinite scroll on mobile and desktop. And I think this is super exciting. We've seen, actually in Search Console, an increase in impressions without seeing an increase in rankings or clicks. So just more visibility for pages that are ranking lower for a keyword. So increase in impressions. And I think, you know, an opportunity where it didn't previously exist to like get some visibility, even get traffic for lower rankings. And for that reason, you know, more emphasis put on optimizing your titles and meta descriptions for click-through rate. You know, people are seeing this where they weren't before. So, you know, think a little bit more about how you can optimize your titles and metas to translate that visibility, that increased visibility, into increased traffic.
Yeah, from what I read it too, it was kind of a result of what they've seen. I think people are on social media. People are used to just consuming, and going, and their Google has basically adapted to say people want more than just 10 results. They want to look through, and they're actually finding people scroll down and scroll back up. Like they're just kind of get more variety. So I think it's those that are creating more content are going to see the benefit, because things that you were ranking 14th for, now you're going to get more visibility than you ever used to, because you know page 2 was just basically nobody went to. So I think it's going to be a good thing long term.
It's more egalitarian.
Yes. The next one here from Brianna was oh, we get this one a lot, and this was a fun one. How do you develop an SEO strategy when your product or category is very niche and your audience is very kind of a specific niche? I actually love these types because you usually see success faster than going after, you know, it's less a competitive space. But it also requires a lot more creativity and thinking deeply about the people behind the keyboard versus actually what they're typing in. If you think about maybe your category is very small, if it's a piece of software or something like that, there might not be a lot of people searching for that exact thing that you do. And it's important to think not just, oh, because there's no search volume for the product that I create, or even if you're creating a new category or something like that, that doesn't mean there's not a market need for the problems that you solve or the other problems that your audience is looking to solve, and looking for information on, that you can be the one that educates them and tries to bring them closer and closer and closer into realizing that you exist. So I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's like,
I actually have an example from my last job.
Yeah.
We were a software for customer service quality assurance. And that search at the time was getting like, or that keyword, customer service quality assurance software, was getting like 10 searches a month or something. But like there was a lot of people Googling how to impact certain metrics on customer support. Customer support is like very metrics driven. They want to serve people really quickly. They want people to be happy, like all these things. And so if you're just looking at the category term, it's super low search volume. But if you're looking for people who are like, how do I improve this? How do I improve that? Like you actually can cast a pretty wide net.
Yeah. I have a customer right now that does paid search management for self-storage facility management, like very, very niche.
So specific.
Right. And there is a little bit of volume for that. So but there's tons of people looking for their closest association. Apparently there's self-storage associations for every single state. There's unique laws for what you can and can't do from a rental standpoint and price increase standpoint for every single state that regulates self-storage industries. So the person Googling that is in the industry, right? So let's think about how we can, you know, educate the market, be that resource for helping them find their local association, helping them understand their local laws, helping them understand marketing ideas, helping them understand business plans, what it takes to buy, you know, all these things that, like, it's still a large audience of people. They might not be looking for that specific pain that you solve, but they're looking for other pains, and it's still them that you want to sell to and be in front of. So expand your thought, instead of just those exact match low-hanging fruit keywords you have to own, and you will own pretty quickly because it's a niche audience. Expand that larger out and think, what else can I help this person do that's in my target market?
It just helps build trust and authority, like as a player in that space. Like if you help teach someone, you know, or educate them about something they need to do, they're going to trust you when they need what you have to offer.
There's also the example of like, if you're kind of trying to disrupt an existing market, like I know CEOs are sometimes like, we are not a chatbot, but like people who are searching for a chatbot are looking for what you offer, even though yours is an updated, better version of it, you know? So it's like, if you can help those people, it's not a crime to go after those terms, in my opinion. But that's potentially a negotiation with the leaders of your company. Okay, so our next question is about TikTok and the death of SEO. Take it away.
Yeah. So Lori asks, I keep hearing that SEO is a dying effort due to the rise of TikTok. What is your outlook for SEO in 2023 and beyond? I love this question because I think changes in how we use technology and how technology adapts based on human behavior is just my favorite part of working in marketing and the internet. And I think, some of this comes back to like what Mitch was saying about infinite scroll, like our habits have changed, our behavior has changed. Google is adapting to that. And so, yes, TikTok has become an incredibly popular platform for search, for sharing ideas, for learning new things. But I think it's more about just an add-on in addition to, the channels that people are already using. So, we haven't really seen search volume trend downward. Like we're not losing out on search volume due to TikTok. It's just another platform that people are going to learn something, to find answers. And it's also really, it depends on your industry. I think TikTok is much more popular for B2C, much more popular, obviously, for younger audiences. And, depending on the space that you're in, a lot of search is still happening on Google, probably will for the foreseeable future, because, it's in Google's best interest to adapt and to meet the needs and the behavior of users of the internet, regardless of, age, industry, whatever. So Google's smart enough and been around long enough that they're going to make sure that search continues to be a useful, relevant tool, and just a part of the mix.
I had a similar situation with like Slack groups, right? I was working with a customer that said, yeah, we're getting a lot of people that, they're not searching for it. They belong to different organizations or groups or networking that they go to, and they just ask the Slack group like, hey, is anybody using a tool for XYZ? What I found was people putting links in the chat, and I was looking at those links, and those links ranked really well for a lot of terms that people were probably looking up on their behalf and sharing. So it's still like very much this like omni-channel ecosystem of things that are happening, right? And just being visible, even if it's like, what was the name of that product I used at the last company I was at, boom, boom, boom. If I can't find you and remember, or I don't see you on the list that I was looking at, it's just one of those things that it's these little touch points that add up over time and just keep playing a part in people's decision making.
Mm-hmm. The next few questions are about AI. I feel like we're kind of like sliding into these futuristic topics, and they're kind of a double whammy. So I'll let you guys kind of just jam on AI generally for a while.
Yeah, and I'll try not to spoil we have another session right after this where I'm talking more in depth with somebody that is very knowledgeable about AI. But Abby and I were just talking about this, and we were all talking about this, and we kind of get together on like a morning SEO chat, and we're talking. AI has been the topic of the last like 4. But there's really 2 big things that I think it kind of separates into. One, I think, is how much is AI changing the actual search experience and quest for knowledge of your audience. And the other is how can it help me as a marketer like be more productive, more impactful, do more with less, be more creative, things like that. I think the bigger thing is that, right? Which is we're seeing it as a really helpful tool that can help with a lot of SEO has a lot of mundane tasks. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot of little tweaks, a lot of little things. And, like writing title tags and meta descriptions, or writing a summary of an article, or doing a transcription of a video, like all of those things can be, if you look at your workflow of content production and you think about what could actually an AI bot help me do with ChatGPT, things like that. that's where I think we're seeing the most impact. I would definitely not just like let it write your entire website and not check it and just publish it. It's one of those things where maybe it's writing first drafts for you. Maybe it's writing headlines. Maybe it's writing a summary. Maybe it's helping you with a creative brief or something like that to just like put words on the page for you to change, right? I know I work that way better. If someone's like, write an article and I just open up a Word doc, I'll just stare at it for an hour. Whereas somebody said, can you review this and make it good? I could go through that in 30 minutes and come up with something really, a lot more impactful. So it kind of depends on your work style and is it easier for you to use something like that, right? And kind of impact your workflows to do those things faster and better. Even helping you with research. Who are the top 10 people in this? Who are this? It can kind of help you understand a topic better than using your own kind of research.
Mhm. I think, we're at the tip of the iceberg with AI. Like, we are discovering new things all the time, new use cases. Somebody put in the chat a link to a tool to record your meetings and take notes with AI. Like, that's so cool. And I think the more that people just experiment with the opportunities, the use cases, the more we're going to find value and find ways to just use it to make our jobs easier, automate some of that tedious work that Mitch was talking about. And I think that kind of leads me to the next question about AI is, how will SEO change with the future of AI chatbots and search? Michelle asked. And I think it's in a similar vein as like the TikTok question. It's this new thing that has come up that's changing how we think about, what's possible, how to find information, what information we're able to access easily and quickly. So an example that I read recently in terms of like a search for ChatGPT that's not really one that you could conduct with traditional search engines is plan a menu for a dinner party of 8 with vegetarians. Like, that's not something that I'm going to search for in Google. And then you get the results from your AI and then you say, okay, now give me a shopping list. Great, all of that. All of that previously were things that I had to do with my own human brain power that were going to take a long time and have to go out and look at some different tools, find some recipes, make a list, whatever. So I think what AI is doing for search is just allowing us to access not even information, just resources or solutions to things that previously were very cumbersome to do online and took a lot of moving pieces. So I think it's cool to see what kind of opportunities are popping up, what things that we just like hadn't thought about that are more feasible options now with AI in the mix.
And we've seen similar things like this change for search. Search has evolved a ton in the last 5 years, even just what gets displayed, right? Voice search. There was a lot, 4 or 5 years ago of like, oh, everyone, you're not going to Google search anymore. You're just going to ask Siri. You're just going to do this. And I think we've all experienced the joy and frustration of using that tool, right? It's great at knowing what temperature it is outside. It's great at ordering more coffee or something to deliver to your house. But, you ask it a complex question and it has, I'm afraid I don't know that one. Same with just the search results themselves, right? I think they called it position 0, which is if I'm searching for like George Washington's birthday, it's just going to give me the answer. I don't have to click into anything to actually get that answer. If all I wanted to know was the year, it's going to serve that, in rich text and rich snippets on your actual search results. That, is essentially taking away traffic from somebody that used to get a lot of traffic from that. So there's always that type of like evolution of types of searches being disrupted, types of ways people are getting information. But I agree with Abby. I think it's going to open up a different way of, instead of searching for all those things and putting them together yourself, you can just ask it more complex questions that will give you a somewhat, hopefully good answer.
Mhm.
Cool. We want to move on to the next.
Yeah, there's a couple here on link building, which
Mhm.
we'll talk about too, because Abby and I have mixed feelings on that. Maybe we'll actually disagree with each other on this, but because
Fun.
it is a hot topic in SEOs, and there's kind of different sides of all the houses here of when Abby and I used to work together. I think it was probably 10 years ago, but we worked in an agency that did a lot of off-page SEO, focusing on building links back to sites. It's still very much part of the Google algorithm. It's how it establishes good sites from bad and trust from non-trust. If you think about every link back to you as an endorsement of trust, if it's from a .org site or a .gov site or a .edu site, those are more valuable, trustful resources that are referencing something on your site. That's kind of always been the backbone of Google's algorithm versus other search algorithms. Is it knows the relationships between sites, and it looks at those and studies them to create those models that say this site is more trustworthy than this site because of the relationships, and it's topic by topic. So it's very complex, but essentially getting backlinks is still something that helps. There are tactics that no longer work, including like spamming of link networks and even guest posting. Essentially, if you're trying to link build, it's probably not as good as doing it with just natural means. Like, think about it like an exercise of digital public relations. If you're a guest on a podcast and that podcast publishes the episode, make sure it links back to your site as like Mitch Briggs was mentioned in this podcast, and he works at Demandwell. Boom, get that link. If you have a network of partners, make sure they link to you. If you're publishing content on other sites, make sure it links back to you. If you have news releases, things like that, all those kind of other, G2, all those, aggregators of content and vendors, it's important to be on those as part of that, thinking of it as part of that ecosystem of like who's sending a signal back to my site that I am relevant. It used to be a numbers game. Just get more links than the competitor and you'll outrank them. I think it's very much more about the content you have in combination with, do you have a certain amount of quality links linking back to you? So I know I get a ton of emails of people saying, I can build you links, I can do these things. I'd honestly just avoid those, and think more about how can I naturally, do some brand exercises, do some PR exercises that allow people to naturally want to link back to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all, Mitch, actually.
Ah.
But I will say one other, something to add to that. I think in addition to digital PR, just thinking about like what other thought leaders, what other experts you can invite into your space. Like, Mitch gave the example of you're a guest on a podcast, get a link, have some really smart guests on your own podcast and share media kits with them afterwards. Hey, here's what you can post on your own blog or your social to link back to this episode on our site. So kind of extending that, like thinking about those relationships and how to make them symbiotic in terms of links and press and visibility.
Yeah, so I think that answers a couple. One of them is kind of like, how relevant is off-page SEO in 2023? Still relevant, still very much part of the algorithm, but I think content is what wins over links. I think if you had a bad piece of content with a lot of great links, you're going to win with the good piece of content with less links, right? It's something you can control, right? To focus on the content, how your site's designed, how it's laid out, the architecture. Those are all things you can control. The actual earned media piece of getting a link to you is tougher for you to actually, you can influence it, you can be strategic about it. But at the end of the day, somebody else has to be the one, hitting publish on your link. Let's do another one that's a little more tactical. So those are two big topics that, we could talk about for a long time. This one is really from Darcy about trailing backslashes, do they matter? And why are people always kind of worried about it? I think the big worry would be, it's part of what we look at when we do like site audits, is just making sure you've picked one or the other. That same goes for www, non-www, HTTPS, non-HTTPS. All of those things essentially are, in Google's eyes, are different URLs. So you can think about all those combinations. You don't want Google trying to figure out which one's the right one to actually index and serve. You want to make it easy and just have one. So those all should 301 redirect to whether, and be consistent. We're going to do HTTPS is obviously what you need to have resolve. Don't let the other one resolve. Make sure the only thing that can resolve is HTTPS. www, I like to just use that allowed, it's essentially is its own subdomain versus like having a non-subdomain. That just allows you to use other subdomains in the future and kind of easily isolate when it comes to reporting and stuff. You can say, it has a unique identifier. And then trailing slash or non-trailing slash, essentially just pick one. I like the non-trailing slash, it just looks better when you're sharing it and things like that. And it's easier to remember not to put the slash at the end every time you have to link internally or something like that. So I like to leave it off and make sure that, all the links in your navigation, when you're linking to other pages, that you're using that exact, not with the slash, without the slash, if that's what you pick, consistently interlink, because otherwise you're going to hit a 301 and make it go. Even if it actually 301s, it's just, you lose a little bit of equity every time you're making something redirect. So it's better to just link to the actual 200 response URL, which is hopefully, I would say www, HTTPS, and non-trailing slash. Just make sure that's like the one that everything resolves to.
Cool. I'm gonna tackle another one from Cody, my guy. What facets of SEO work do you see people overlook most often? And what's new in SEO over the last 6-12 months? Something that we see all the time, and then when people can go back and address, see almost immediate results, is thinking that you can publish a piece, a really great piece, it ranks, it's driving traffic, and you did it. There's your content. And then you go on and you create more, and people come back and say, like, we had this blog post, it was like driving tons of traffic, tons of leads, and it's just, it's dropping. What's happening? And you ask, well, when's the last time you made any changes to that content? We're like, oh, we didn't. We published it 2 years ago, and that's it. And Google really values timeliness, relevancy, making sure that information is fresh and up to date, and go back and revisit those pieces, those pages that have performed well for you. Don't let them just sit there and, become out of date. And don't think that like when they start to fall off, then you just need to like publish a new page and like make up for the loss. Go back and revisit that old content. If it is something related to, a space that's changing, there's new information, add that new information, add, new dates. I had a customer with a blog post about, small business health insurance. And it was just like, tax stuff, financial stuff, how these, laws change. And the piece had done so well, and then had fallen off. And she went in and updated it with new information for 2023, changed the publish date, made it so that it was current, and almost immediately traffic went back up, rankings went back up. It's, just sending those signals that this is still relevant, this is still worth looking at. You can just keep reinvesting in the content that you created and not have to start from scratch every time. So I think that's kind of a big opportunity that's pretty easy to overlook and can have some pretty big results. And then in terms of what's new, I think a lot of like what we've talked about with AI and with just the change in search results becoming so much more visual because of, people's interest in things like TikTok. So just like the way that Google is trying to adapt to changes in user behavior. And, I think, Mitch, you brought up like position 0 of just like information straight in the search results that people don't go and click and, go to a website. And I think that things like that, there's always kind of that push and pull of like, what is best for searchers, for users, like Google, that's going to be Google's #1 priority, is to make it useful for the people searching and make sure that they're serving up something that's going to get people to stick around and keep using Google. And there's always kind of that push and pull for marketers of like, yeah, but what about my website? I want the traffic. I want them to come to my website. So I think just like maintaining that perspective of like, what can I do that's actually going to be the most helpful and the most useful for my audience. However that may show up in search, however that may be driving traffic to my site, whatever channel it might be. That is like the main focus, I think, for every player right now, is like people have options, for different platforms, different ways of searching, different ways of finding information. How can you put content out there that is going to best serve your audience and build trust, whether it's on Google or not?
Yeah, I think that's a couple of questions here that maybe we can hit all at once, which is like a lot of common theme is like, what mistakes are people making? What about site structure? What about taxonomy? Those types of things. I think you're getting to that, Abby, and saying like, one thing I think we all see is there's like a over reliance on the blog. That's like the only way anyone can publish any content is I have to blog about it. And so I think falling in love with the blog is a mistake. The blog is there for certain types of content, but start thinking about other types of content through your site, whether it's long form articles, forming those into like an encyclopedia of information, helpful, useful content, FAQs, the blog itself. Like there's just a lot there that you can slice and dice and put them into different groups. I think everyone kind of falls in love with like, here's my product site and my blog. Think about how you can better serve your audience with different types of content and different types of structure.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have to wrap on that. Thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you, Mitch and Abby, for dropping some serious wisdom on us. I just want to plant the seed that we're actually kicking off a weekly workshop series, the Sustainable Growth Weekly, and you can register for it. Mitch will be presenting next week. I don't think I've officially gotten your consent for that, Mitch, but just letting you know. And you can register at demandwell.com/SGW, and we hope to see you there. Thanks, everybody.